This is a free sample of the book, Never Ghosted Again, The Art of Being Irresistible, by Cairo Copeland. The first half of this book is posted right here on YouTube, free for everyone to listen to. If you like this content and want to hear or read the rest, or want to listen to it free of ads, visit reinventideal.com/ghosted. The book is available on Kindle, paperback, and Audible at reinventideal.com/ghosted. Chapter 2. The Wrong Side of the Glass. The World as It Is. Picture that situation again. The most beautiful woman Jonah had ever seen was there, laying on the couch, scantily clad. And don't forget, she was in his house. This would seem like victory, yet felt like the most suffering defeat he was forced to accept. Why? What was he supposed to do? She was a guest for his Airbnb and he needed her money. Well, maybe not hers, but if she left a negative review because he hit on her, it would cost him more than money. He might end up blacklisted from Airbnb forever, like Harvey Weinstein was blacklisted from Hollywood. Guys have no idea whether women are comfortable enough to welcome their advances. They all fear being accused of being creepy, awkward, and called harassers. More than that, she was on the phone. It's rude to interrupt someone doing something else, especially a conversation. Only a criminal looking to stick her up or an asshole with no consideration for anyone else but himself would do so. Further, this was her boyfriend on the phone. Don't steal other men's women, right? That is an automatic invisible barrier not to cross. As if he needed one more reason to stay put. On his side of the glass, her 3 friends were in the other room. If he made any advance or even attempted at conversation, they would hear, they would judge, maybe even step in, cock-blocking as it's called. Lastly, he ruminated, am I even good enough for this woman? Here she was, overjoyed to be talking to this man on the phone like it was something she looked forward to for days, and that was an experience I've never had. Who am I to attempt to step up to her at such a level? Wouldn't it come across as Merry trying to join the Rohan army that laughs at him behind his back in Lord of the Rings? Or worse, like Steve Urkel trying to woo a lovely Laura Winslow, who is deeply repulsed by him. Those characters are so easy to relate to, and their opposites are not. All these roadblocks defeated him into submission and acceptance of staying on his side of the glass. How do we summarize all these roadblocks concisely? What is at the root of them? Cultural conditioning. That is the enemy of all aspirations to be attractive. Cultural conditioning dictates that it's rude to interrupt someone on the phone, to go after another man's girl, to start a conversation with her when she's with her friends, to cower at how beautiful she is, and deep down it's what prevents you from honestly telling the most beautiful woman you've ever seen that she is exactly that. If you have been even deep into a relationship with a woman you're attracted to, there's an awkward feeling within you to look her in the eyes and tell her how beautiful she is to you. The source of this feeling comes from cultural conditioning and the imperatives thrust upon us from its anonymous authority. While in the scenario above, it probably was the right move not to make a move, it still didn't feel like the right thing. Not because Jonah should have stood up and demanded what he wanted, but because he gave in to old excuses and taught himself all new ones. He allowed himself to continue the habit of giving these excuses power over him. In many situations prior to and long after that scenario, just one of those roadblocks was present. It kept him from going after what he wanted. See a woman with her friends? Give in. The friends may not like you, so you're doomed. See a woman looking like she's in a hurry? Give in. You'll probably cause a delay and she'll be bitchy about it. See a woman relaxing? Give in. You'll probably interrupt her peacefulness and she'll chew your head off. See a woman that's the most beautiful you've ever seen? Give in. You're not good enough. She probably has a boyfriend already. Even if she's single, she probably knows she's too good for you and will have no reservations telling you. This list can go on forever, and the excuses are endless. They arise in the mind so naturally that it doesn't require any effort, and that's because of the imperatives passed down to all. Imperatives from anonymous authority. What are these imperatives? Who is this authority? And what is this cultural conditioning? Here's an illustration of the life of a typical male in today's world. Let's call him you. Whether you were born into a loving family or a broken home, you more than likely received a great deal of influence from your mother, and most of your upbringing was geared toward winning her approval. Say please and thank you. Time for bed. Be a good boy. These were probably the first rules you learned, but more importantly, you learned that you must do what pleases others and behave the way others think you should. These are the imperatives. Imperatives will come from other sources like teachers, who are often female. Sit up straight, color in the lines, write neatly, and raise your hand before you speak. None of these imperatives are bad per se, as they create order and inspire a polite society, but they are about society at large, ignoring the individual's wants and needs. Furthermore, they teach the individual that they have no choice in the matter, no agency. Still more imperatives are on the way. These ones are from society at large and may even be stricter. Not only must we wear clothes to function in society, but nice clothes other people like to look at, despite their discomfort or unaffordability. The necktie is a requisite for a job interview. Combed and styled hair is mandated before going out in public. There are also certain words we are just plain not allowed to say. Peers will collectively have an influence on imperatives as well. They will decide for you what is cool and what is not. Even though one-on-one, two people may find commonalities and realize that what makes them different is not so bad, the collective will overrule. As evidenced when you had a female friend as a child that no longer wants to be seen with you at an older age because of what her friends might think and the rumors that may be spread around the school. The imperatives from anonymous authority have the power not just to control your actions, but also take from you something you thought was secured. They are referred to as imperatives because nobody has any say in the matter. Even if you go back to who passed these imperatives on to you, they will not know. A parent may reply, "Because I said so," or "Because it's how I was raised." But they will never examine if it is in fact the optimal way. They just do it as if they are the dictations of an anonymous authority. These imperatives continue all throughout life. Go to school, get a good job, pay your bills, obey laws, don't say these words, make sacrifices. We hear the demands enough that we just give in to them. We never had agency as a child, and in many ways, not even up till now. God's sake, you didn't even get to choose your own name. Being used to adhering to imperatives made it easy to make up and abide by all new ones, specifically ones related to women. Like, don't talk to her, you don't know her, so it will be awkward. Don't flirt with her, because you'll seem creepy. Don't try to have sex with her, because that will make you a pervert. Early on, you heard fairy tales and stories that spoke of heroes saving the girl, which won him her affection. This concept was reinforced in comic books, movies, and maybe even life experience, that you're not good enough as you are. A woman's affection must be earned by achievements and status. You must man up. Get a good job, make lots of money, bust your ass off in the gym to get the body she desires, take up dance and singing lessons that you're not even all that interested in. Because if it weren't for the promise of pretty faces watching you in admiration doing such activities, you'd never do them. The message is quite clear. What success you have equals whether you deserve love. It is accepted as reality quite readily, as guys pursue higher degrees of education in subjects they're really not all interested in. Even many of the most artsy guys return to school to get MBAs, when led to believe that the letters after your name lead to more money. PhDs, CPAs, CFAs, CFPs, the whole alphabet soup of designations are pursued by guys hoping to make something out of themselves. But is this what they really want? Sometimes yes. They want to be respected, and there are even those that want, in addition to the approval of women, the approval of other men, particularly the ones with connections. They should know that this is really the only approval that they will win, and what they should really know, but do not, is that the only approval they really need is their own. But how did cultural conditioning achieve at perverting something as pure as love, a voluntary emotion that's transformational, into a reward that's merely transactional? In the context of stories and movies, it's just what makes the structure work. Hero overcomes an obstacle and lives happily ever after. But it's more happily when ever after comes with the girl he desires. It's just what entertains us. However, this concept has bled into all scintillas of society. Love is no longer believed to be unconditional. Only women, children, and cute animals are loved unconditionally, But a man is only loved under the condition that he provides something. When a man announces to his guy friends that he's dating someone new, immediately they gather around and ask, well, what does she look like? So they can admire her beauty, an inherent part of her persona. It would take a lot to change it or take it away from her. But when a woman announces to her girlfriends that she is dating someone new, the first question asked is, what does he do? And the employment a man has is an external factor that can be taken from him. The message is quite clear. What you can give equals whether you deserve love. All the cultural conditioning tells you that you on your own do not deserve women, but you must deserve them or else cease to be respectable as a man. Look what society thinks of unmarried guys in their 40s. It's assumed that if no woman wanted him, there must be something wrong with him. The tax code is certainly not kind to them, as they are to married men, and ironically, when said guy tries to get a woman, he's viewed as creepier than the young pervert society assumes he was in his youth. But this perception starts younger. The unfortunate boys who could not get dates to the prom all stand together off to the side, which they call the loser's wall. They're made fun of by the fortunate ones on the dance floor, given looks that say, ha ha, and our culture's fiction is particularly unkind to them in caricatures of them, as demonstrated by Screech in Saved by the Bell and Steve Urkel in Family Matters. The guys that couldn't get girls were made out to be guys that nobody wants to be like in any way, shape, or form. Yet even the guys that do manage to have success with girls early on aren't awarded approval from society. They are told they are lucky bastards, as if there's nothing among their own qualities that's deserving of what they have. Behind their backs, it is said that she's way out of his league, or called an odd couple. It's apparent she could easily walk away, but he's not going anywhere. Combined with the phrases used to encourage the single, like getting lucky and win her heart, the subtext continues to suppress the men of today's world. The message is clear. Having her now does not equal the right to keep her. A new imperative is forged, and that imperative is that women are more valuable than men. Thus, by default, men do not deserve women. Men are expected to sacrifice themselves for women when the ship is sinking or by going to war, because women are perceived as more valuable. And we agree to this wholeheartedly. After all, ships and nations are referred to by female pronouns. That's because it is more natural for a man to sacrifice himself for a woman. When the battle is intense, we must do all we can to defend her. This inflated valuation of women is what allows them to so easily ghost on you, and do so without consideration of the consequences to you. Fallen soldiers. None of this is to bitch about reality, but merely to define it. Many guys will accept these realities and never question them, so they will do what's expected of them. They'll go to school, get a good job, win designations, become successful, attain status, get rich even. This is not to say that they shouldn't aspire to be their best selves, nor should they question and reject reality, but they should question this. What if they do all that and still don't get what they were originally after? This, sadly, has become a reality for far too many guys. They've busted their asses off doing the right thing their whole lives, learning difficult subjects to become valuable to the world, but never learned the difficult subject of women and how to become valuable to them. If they are in synchrony, they come off the high of their recent success and use that energy to pursue women, only to be met with failure. They pick up and try again, thinking they'll do better this time, but they fail again. No matter how many times they try to ride the horse, they're always kicked off because they didn't learn the proper way to saddle it. Too much of this for far too long a period, and they become bitter. The skills that made them successful were often based in logic. Action, then reaction. Do this, get that result. Use this equation, get the right answer. But now they are attempting to use the same logical minds in pursuing of something that is the farthest thing from logical. Love. They study hard, they get good grades. They follow a gym routine, they get shredded. They work hard, they make money. They save and invest money wisely, they get rich. They get out of it what they put into it. Relationships, particularly those with women, do not work that way. When the mind has certain expectations and reality does not adhere to those expectations, they get confused, then feel attacked. You've seen a rejected man take it quite personally, for sure. Experiencing enough of it creates resentment, and the festering resentment in their hearts and minds bleeds out into the rest of their persona, creating vibes that the women they want are naturally repelled by. This spiral only goes down one direction. After much emotional distress, the logical mind catches back up to them. They do the cost-benefit and risk-reward analysis on women, and in general find that it fails across the board, so they withdraw and go their own way. That is the genesis of the MGTOW movement, MGTOW, men going their own way, a bitter men's group that has no use for women and often attacks them. After watching their videos, the author encourages you not to. There is validity to their arguments and enough to put hate in your heart. You could find yourself relating to many of them as they air their grievances about women and past relationships. They have been terribly hurt and are in deep emotional pain. The author feels for them, but can't endorse their solution. The author has seen firsthand in the home what happens when the man and the woman resent each other, as he watched his parents who hated each other with great intensity fight while foaming at the mouth. His only comfort as a frightened child was the space between the floor and the bottom of his bed that he hid under while these fights went on. The effect it had on him as a child and into adulthood was near catastrophic. Imagine the dynamic of a household like that, spread around the world like a virus, and then the effect of said virus would have on the world. Is that the world we want? What these men going their own way fail to realize is that what they've now professed to hate, women, have complete control over them yet again. The women control their thoughts because they can't stop thinking about how awful they are. The women control their conversations when they gather online to bitch about them. The women control their actions when they change their plans and direction in life to avoid them. The enemy is not the women. It is the imperatives we adhere to, the anonymous authority we submit to, and the cultural conditioning we never questioned. Those are what must be defeated, so that a truce and eventually a happy marriage, the ultimate truce and treaty of peace, can be attained. The world as it is. Continuing with what world as it currently is, turn now your focus from the imperatives forced onto men to the imperatives forced onto women. These are imperatives that tell them what is ladylike and what is not. In high school, a teacher may tell a girl her behavior is not becoming of a lady. Getting along with each other, diplomacy, and mutual agreement for the sake of harmony. These are feminine traits. We don't know who established this edict, but the anonymous authority strikes again. The role models they are given are the Disney princesses, for whom even the most charming of men change their ways and risk their lives to rescue. Perhaps her parents are of a more traditional mind when it comes to relationships with boys. They tell her the boy must initiate all the phone calls and courtship rituals. Either explicitly or implicitly, this rule is passed on. The author saw it explicitly when his mother laid these ground rules on his sister, but it is also seen implicitly when girls are told that they are special, beautiful, and wonderful by their parents, when all they're really doing is simply existing. Praise for nothing, which is quite the opposite from a boy's upbringing. This stems from the protective nature of fathers. They refer to their daughters as their little girls, the key word being little. The subtext of it is an assumed defenselessness the girl possesses by nature of her gender, and the girl is given no opportunity to speak for herself on the matter. Cultural conditioning reigns again, as training for later, when doors are held open for her, when she could easily open and hold them for herself. The same fathers are the types that do their best to intimidate and scare the girl's potential suitors and prom dates. This is one of the deeply accepted imperatives that pisses guys off the most, mainly because of the hypocrisy behind it. The father says he's being protective because he knows what the boys are after and what they're thinking, because he once was one of them and thought the same things. Well, gee, sir, when you were a boy, did you appreciate it when your chosen girl's father treated you with such presumptions? Did you respect him or resent him afterwards? How about instead of scaring the young man, you act friendly and likable to him to the point where he'd feel deeply guilty about violating your boundaries? Or have you even considered the effects of your assumption that your little girl is too dumb to spot a creep herself? She'll probably end up liking the guys you disapprove of specifically because you disapprove of them. But where is that mindset of the protective father coming from? A societal idealization and idolization of female virginity. It is believed by deep agreement that a woman's virginity is precious and valuable, to the point where, when she loses it, she's less valuable. It's unclear where this assumption came from, but it is reinforced by religion. Virgins are held to a high standard in them. The Virgin Mary in Christianity, beautiful Rachel in Judaism. A martyr is awarded 72 virgins in Islam. The imperative passed down throughout the generations is that virginity is valuable and sex is bad. Women should abstain from it. The culturally conditioned imperative on sex speaks to immense collective idiocy. Everyone likes it, but never will anyone freely admit they do. No one is to talk about it. They are to pretend they're fine without it, and they shame each other over it. The deal is everyone has this thing between their legs, and it feels good to touch it, and even better if someone we're attracted to touches it. The same with nudity. Everyone likes to look at attractive people naked, but you don't dare say so, even though they like the same thing. There is great vulnerability in sex as we are shedding our calm and collected appearances and everything that makes us supposedly respectable to give into another person. Perhaps it goes all the way back to the Garden of Eden. Adam and Eve had no shame at first in being naked, but after their sin, they were ashamed and hid themselves. Was it their nudity and sexuality they were ashamed of? Or their pitiful failure to obey an easy rule? Don't eat this one thing. Guys will often refuse to admit they masturbate, or give the old "I don't need to" excuse. The admission is even more rare from women, as they've been told it's not ladylike. The people that are open about their sexuality are ostracized from society, labeled as perverts or sluts. Worse yet is the double standard that permits men to sleep with 100 women and be respected for it, but a woman that sleeps with 100 men is considered a slut. Because of this, women often round down the number of sex partners they've had when asked. What causes the discomfort around sex, except when having it, is a baffling mystery. Perhaps the fear is more born out of the discomfort it may cause others. One coaching client was attracted to women's feet because he grew up on a beach and noticed that the prettiest girls had the nicest feet. Maybe because it was a sign that a girl who takes care of her feet is likely to take care of everything else about her body and her life. But if this was admitted to a group of women, even close friends, they may make certain they wear full shoes and socks around him. He thanked God for yoga class. But it speaks to the fear of being seen for who you really are. An irrational fear, no doubt, because everyone enjoys sex. Vulnerability is terrifying, although it never used to be. When you were a kid, going up to the diving board for the first time, you were quite vulnerable and terrified, but after the first jump, you were back on it again and did it at least 20 times that day. An important question to ask yourself while on this journey of discovery is, when did life stop being fun and suddenly became scary? For girls, it may have been when they had their first boyfriend that made their friends jealous, so rumors were spread around the school about them. The sweetness of youthful adulation then becomes twisted into something dirty by these rumors, and the girl feels horrible inside. All her life she was receiving princess treatment and praise just for being alive. Now she feels the opposite treatment. Despise, and a gross feeling of being dirty. Or perhaps the first time she sleeps with a guy, he tells his friends about it in a bragging show-off manner, which inspires the dirty feeling again, like her feelings of intense intimacy were used just for amusement or to satisfy a dare, and all hell breaks loose if her parents, particularly her father, hear about it. Society has an agenda, and that agenda is to keep order. If women are having lots of sex, the chances of unplanned pregnancies multiply, and this can threaten the order society craves like wrenches in the gears. Children are needy by nature and costly through no fault of their own, but having no fault does not mean no debts. The first of which is the woman being absent from the workforce, continually turning the gears of society to give birth and nurse the child. But then the debts can be magnified by the father disappearing, becoming a deadbeat. Now society must take his place, and even when it does, that safety net doesn't work well enough to keep every unwanted child out of mischief. Or worse yet, gangs on the streets. No matter how pro-life or pro-choice you are, one must admit that unwanted children are an immense cost to civilization. The author himself was an unplanned pregnancy and used to take the pro-choice arguments as personal attacks. But now, after living in a city populated by thousands of unwanted children, he understands their side better. Perhaps this explains why pro-choice women are so staunch about the matter. They were pressured by society not to have sex, then pressured by guys to have sex, then punished by society for breaking the code, and abandoned by the guy for breaking the water. A pregnancy, wanted or not, carries a heavy cost that the woman pays already, but this is intensified by the world's discouragement. Therefore, it is ingrained deep into society for women to abstain from sex. Ironically, as sexual images of women are everywhere, So strongly to the point where guys believe that women don't want sex. The perception is that when a woman does have sex, she's doing the man a favor. Or worse, he's taking something from her. It's as if they are pure celibate angels corrupted by a man's animalistic sinful lust. Now ask any man who's had sex and he'll tell you this has never been his experience. When he had sex with a woman, she immediately became hostile, like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you just did that to me, I feel so robbed." Unless he's very bad at it. But still, the idea persists because of how society idealizes and idolizes a woman's virginity. Therefore, female porn stars are paid more than their male counterparts. They do the same work, but her reputation is tarnished by her work more so than the male's. Ironically, the truth is that a man really does not care how many guys his woman has had sex with. Perhaps they'd be inclined to think that it must mean she knows what she's doing. But what they do care about is what other people would think and say. Again, the imperatives are the enemy. The next imperative damaging women in the long run is the focus on perceived wholeness in their lives. This does not mean work-life balance, which literally can mean anything one wants it to mean, nor does it mean mindful practices like yoga and altruism. What it means is the work they are told to seek. You've seen the useless majors in academic programs marketed to young female students. Gender studies, women's studies, religious studies. Things that have no practical application in the marketplace. And then there's also academic pursuits marketed to women that pay very little in the end, like social work, psychology, and teaching. The girls go through the programs and get the degrees, being told they're in for meaningful work, but find out too late it's not profitable work. The gender wage gap can largely be traced to the discrepancy in usefulness of studies. Worse yet, the girl realizes the triviality of her education, goes back to school to become something useful like a nurse, but takes out massive debts to do it, and any increase in wages she gets is already spoken for by the debts. It's only natural for women to feel undercut economically in comparison to men, and here come the man-hating feminists to tell them it is the men who are to blame for it. Perhaps the most egregious thing the author has seen personally throughout his career in financial services is how little are the amounts saved and invested for a girl's education. Looking at the 529 plans where a boy is the beneficiary, the savings are stacked up and future contributions can be counted on. But the girls only get what's left over. The thinking, or perhaps hoping by the parents stashing money into these plans is that she'll marry someone else's son who benefited from such a well-funded plan and landed a good job to take care of her and support her. Again, agency is swept away. So women have been shamed out of being sexual, manipulated into meaningless lives, and as a result, when unattractive males in power over them make unwanted sexual advances or comments, the dirtiness these women feel inside rears its ugly head again. Then it gives birth to a new movement, the female rival to MGTOW, the Me Too movement. While the hatred of men was originally the domain of the ugly, overweight, Wicca-practicing, purple-hair feminist type, the hatred is now being shared by the more beautiful versions of the female side. Me Too moves without mercy, and can destroy a man's life that he's worked so hard to build. Now, if the guy accused by them really was like Harvey Weinstein, then he definitely deserves it. But what if this power Me Too possesses was used carelessly, and an innocent man was in the crosshairs of it? Men respond to it with MGTOW, when they should be responding with love. Remember, when you hate someone, they control you. But if you love everyone, no one can control you. But the clash between Me Too and MGTOW continues to rage like a bloody, uncivil war. And like the author's parents who hated each other, future generations suffer. Boys and girls grow up confused, and the problems within the male-female relationship become exacerbated. Now, on the dating scene, flaking and ghosting reign. Feelings are disregarded, and respect is a forgotten practice. In short, it's brutal out there. What you are about to read is how to handle it, how to rise above it, how to be the attractive man no woman can resist. This is the art of being irresistible, truly irresistible.
Thank you for listening to this free sample of the book, Never Ghosted Again, The Art of Being Irresistible, by Cairo Copeland. If you enjoyed it and want to hear or read the rest, or want to listen to it free of ads, visit reinventideal.com/ghosted. The book is available on Kindle, paperback, and Audible at reinventideal.com/ghosted.